Some call me Steve, Dad, husband, or friend. Others might call me boss, coach, or mentor. Today you can call me the Leadership Hacker. Thanks for listening in, I really appreciate it. My job as the Leadership Hacker is to hack into the minds, experiences, habits and learning of great leaders, C-suite executives, authors and development experts so that I can assist you developing your understanding and awareness of leadership. I'm Steve Rush and I'm your host today. I'm the author of Leadership Cake, I'm a transformation consultant and leadership coach and can't wait to start sharing all things leadership with you. Today's guest is Cody Lowry. He's the president of the Automotive and Retail division of the Intermark Group. He's also the author of Schmooze. But before we get a chance to speak with Cody, it's a Leadership Hacker News. In today's news, we explore the concept behind hybrid working, or as it's often referred to, flexible working. Since the onset of the pandemic, a myriad of corporations have overhauled the way they operate. Now, with the possibility of a return to office on the horizon, nearly 2/3 of workers are wanting to remain working from home, according to a recent survey by Gallup. Their research has found that organisations need to develop a long-term hybrid work strategy that meets the needs of both employees and businesses. In determining these approaches, leaders should keep one concept at or near the top of their priority list, and that's flexibility. So remote working is no longer an added benefit, but a requirement for happy and productive people. So here's some tips and ideas to help you think about your hybrid strategy. First things first, people come first. It's important that organisations don't make assumptions about the way they think their employers currently work and want to in the future. You need to know exactly how your people want to work so that you can plan and put in the necessary steps in place. By gaining better insights and asking the right questions of your team, you can then adapt and think about getting the best out of them so that you benefit as an organisation. Create a number of different spaces. And when I mean spaces, not physical spaces, but workspaces. Of course, some permanent desk spaces will still be needed, but your organisation might want to start thinking about hot desks, video conferences, call pods, or remote collaboration spaces that will help you get the best out of people working differently at different times and from different locations. Create a truly inclusive workplace. There are obviously huge benefits of embracing the world of hybrid working, but it's also important to avoid that any inclusivity issues may arise when you kind of move to this model. There are concerns by some that it actually might lead to a creation of a two-tier workforce, those who are constantly present in the office and those who decide to work more remotely. And as leaders, we need to make sure that people understand that whether they're in the office or not, their work is equally valued. We also need to be thoughtful around how and when meetings are held so that everybody feels included. Health, safety and well-being are at the absolute heart of this activity. It doesn't matter whether your people are working from home or in an office. As a leader, you have a duty of care over your team. For those in an office, it's important to ensure that all the necessary steps are taken to create a COVID-safe environment, while those working from home need to be informed of the ways in which to protect their physical and mental health. And remember, mental health is just as important as physical health, especially at the moment. And there's lots that we can do to make sure that we keep our physical and mental health of our employees at the front of our conversations. So in summary, let's think about what needs to happen. We need to be thoughtful about the people, their environments, the choices that they make, and tapping into technology that helps us do that the best, whether we're in an office or whether we're working remotely. What's most important is, without your people being motivated, focused and engaged, it doesn't really matter where they are. That's been the Leadership Hacker News. If you have any insights, information, please get in touch with us. Cody Lowry is a special guest on today's show. He's an entrepreneur. He's the president of the Automotive and Retail division at the Intermark Group. He's also a speaker and author of the book Schmooze. Join me in welcoming Mr. Schmooze himself. Cody, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much, Steve. I am delighted to be with you today. And your folks out there don't know how popular you are, but Steve and I actually had a conversation 9 years ago, and I finally got an opportunity to be on his show, so I'm tickled to death to be here.
Schmooze accent already, and we've only just got started, huh?
There you go. There you go.
So, Cody, you have an amazing backstory. And I'd be really interested for the listeners to get a sense of kind of where you came from and how you've arrived to do what you do.
Yeah, Steve, I'm really got a different story. We always hear about the rags to riches. Well, I'm actually a riches to rags kid. I was born into a family of wealth and blue blood, and by the time I was 5, it was all gone. We lived in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and with a 7-year period, a 7-mile radius, we moved 32 times. So it was, the lights were turned off. St. Vincent de Paul was my favorite saint because he used to be there Christmas Day. But, just backtracking a little bit, there's a high school in Detroit named after my grandfather. Was a book written. He was the first president of Wayne State University. My mother was actually, I call her the debutante mom because she made her debutante and went to a finishing school in Washington and, had all the trappings of, just a great life and a good life to come. She met my father they were both camp counselors, swimming coaches at Camp Chicopee in northern Michigan. And he came from a pretty well-to-do family, but for whatever reason, they got married, had 4 beautiful children, and I was one of them. And they came to Florida and ran through whatever money they had. My dad became an alcoholic. My mom was an alcoholic. It was kind of a helter-skelter childhood with screaming and hollering and, no food, the lights being changed, and then moving 32 times. We actually lived in 2 places twice.
That's incredible.
Yeah. I can remember coming home with my little brother and from school, and we didn't live there anymore. So, I had kind of a different childhood. At age 11, I started selling papers, and you're from across the pond there, so you know who the Artful Dodger is. And
sure do.
Yeah, at times I felt like the Artful Dodger. My mom and my other siblings have been very successful, and I credit my mom. I can remember her after a few martinis looking across and say, we may not have anything now, but you kids have blue blood in your veins and you can do whatever you want and blah, blah, blah. So she instilled a confidence in us that I don't think we otherwise would have had. And one of them was, you got to get out there and make it happen. And so at age 11, I started selling papers for the Miami News. Now, I've got to ask you a question, Steve.
Go for it.
And I want you to be real honest with me here. Would you buy a paper if I told you where you got your shoes, what state you were born in, and how many birthdays you've had?
Pretty neat, yeah.
Well,
I would think.
Of course you would. For a nickel?
Mm-hmm.
You got your shoes on your feet. You were born in the state of infancy, and you've only had one birthday the day you were born.
Nice.
So when you look at where I came from and then I wasn't raised I was raised with the doctor's kids and the lawyer's kids because my mother made us believe that we were as good as anyone. And so with that said, we always worked and I think selling papers actually gave me a pretty good foundation for my life in general.
It's really interesting that 32 moves in such a short period of time is just a huge amount of disruption, isn't it, for a young person, a young family?
Christmas Day, we moved.
Wow.
And then my mom is screaming at my father about, what about the Christmas tree? What about the Christmas tree? And the next thing you know, Steve, he runs in the house, grabs the Christmas tree, lights, tinsel, and throws it on the back of a pickup truck and with some expletives, said, "Get in the truck and we're leaving." And it was crazy. He did leave, by the way, and my mother raised the 4 of us. I can't tell you how much she really means to me, and I think my siblings would parrot that comment.
I did some research a few years back, actually, around resilience and what are the foundations and what could cause resilience and ingenuity. And irony is those people who are brought up in a service background, who move a lot consistently in their childhood, have greater and deeper resilience.
Really?
Because they're used to having to adapt. And I wonder if some of those foundations that you've got in your adult career and being successful around that resilience and that grit and determination come from that learning to adapt in those 32 moves?
Well, I would guess it did, not everybody is obviously wired the same. And I can tell you that, I love people. I engage people at restaurants. The waiter, by the time that food is delivered, I know everything about that person, and where they're from, what their dad did, and I just find that terribly interesting. There's so many people in this world that we're never going to have an opportunity to meet, and I kind of regret that. And so, I think when you're young and you're going through all those kinds of things, you learn how to make friends easily, or, I say easily, you learn how to make friends. And with that, you ask a lot of questions, and I always ask a lot of questions. I ask a lot of questions today.
Now, you're affectionately known as the King of Schmooze.
Well,
so for people who have not heard of Schmooze or are not familiar with it, how would you describe what Schmooze is?
Well, schmooze actually comes from the Yiddish word, which means to chat idly or to chat in a friendly, persuasive manner, especially to gain favor in business or connections. And what I have done, Steve, is I've redefined the word schmooze. And for me, schmooze is a lot of things. The publisher put up 25, different attributes for schmooze, and it's about building relationships. It's about a winning smile. It's about looking out after the little guy. It's about being a contrarian. It's about having a heart, and it's about appreciating, and just there's 25 of them. I could list them, but it would take a while here.
Sure. Now, you recognised at an early age that we would call it in this side of the pond gift of the gab, or the schmooze, was the key foundation for you to be successful. What was it when you realised you were onto something around using this as a positive to help you become successful?
So I guess I learned, that school was difficult for me because, moving around like that, and I didn't live up to my own expectations. And so when I finally realized that, I got something here, I actually transferred from one high school to another high school, and it was a transfer in my senior year. And I wasn't there, probably 6 weeks, and they were doing the superlatives and, for the seniors. And somehow I made it to my senior year. I don't know how. And they nominated me for the most talented. And I went, how did I get nominated? I'm not even in this school 2 months, and people are nominating me. Well, that turned out to be a pretty pivotal year for me,
right,
Steve, because I was, I was master of ceremonies of this, master of ceremonies of that. I got really heavy into theater and speech productions. And I think that's when I really found myself, and it obviously helped me once I got into college.
Now, you've managed to use schmooze in a number of different situations, and there are a couple that you call out in the book, so I'd love to explore them with you.
Absolutely.
One was, how do you set up the meeting with the president in just 1 week from nowhere?
Yeah, it was that was really something. At the time, I was general sales manager for a large Chevrolet store, and Jimmy Carter was coming into town, and he was running for president. And we were having a management meeting with the dealer and the general manager and what have you. And I just started thinking about him coming into town. I thought, well, my gosh, wouldn't that be a great PR move if we could somehow set up a meeting with the president of the United States? Now, I got to tell you, I had an angle, and my angle is that our dealer, Anthony Abraham, he was a very conservative guy, but he really thought that Jimmy Carter was taking a lot of heat at the time, and he ran an article in the Fort Lauderdale News, the Miami Herald, the Tampa Tribune, and the St. Petersburg Times, and it was called "A Summer of Discontent" by Walter Annenberg. another very conservative guy. And the thrust of the article, Steve, was that, no matter how much you dislike the president or how much, whatever issues you have, he's the only president we have, and we've got to support him. And coming from two very conservative guys, that was quite a tribute to put those full page ads in those newspapers. So I did have an angle, and I said, the president's coming in next week. Why don't we set up a meeting and see if we can't get a little PR out of it? And the dealer laughed, and the general manager, who was always watching his back, thought I wanted his job. He kind of ridiculed me somewhat, but he said, well, go see what you can do. And I did. The first office I called was Jody Powell. You may remember Jody Powell, but he was the president's right-hand guy, and he threw me to one guy, and then they threw me to another office and this office, and finally I got a hold of the scheduling office, and my persistence was, on full charge, and I was really wanted to make this thing happen, and the guy let me know really quickly. He said, Mr. Lowry, do you realize how many people want to set up a meeting with the President of the United States? And I immediately shot back, Steve. I said, well, that's probably true, but you could count on one hand how many men just spent $20,000 in three of Florida's largest newspapers in a state that's going to be critical to the president in the upcoming election.
Wow, yeah.
And then he started, who am I talking to here, And next thing you know, I get a meeting with Quiche LeGrand and let her know what's going on. And we have a meeting with the President of the United States. And that, by the way, you can Google that. And Cody Lowry, President Carter, or Tommy Abraham. And it shows, the president's schedule back then and today. They've got every little minute, logged in, what he did, who he talked to. And so, so we set up a meeting with the President of the United States, and that did not that did not hinder my progress with Abraham Chevrolet. I did very well after that.
Awesome. And also there's a couple of whacking great leadership lessons there, isn't there? So that whole kind of persistence and resilience and never letting up is a really big one for me. But the other is that the squeaky wheel gets the oil.
Absolutely.
And, if you're really passionate about something and you want people to know that you're passionate, if you stop squeaking, you're not going to get the oil.
Well, that's absolutely true. Yeah, I agree with that.
So the other art I was really fascinated by is you ended up carrying the Olympic torch for the Olympic Games. And that, again, was because of your schmooze. Tell us how that came about.
Well, in the book, I talk about mentoring and the importance of mentoring. And I can remember when I was in college driving a Corvair, unsafe at any speed, that used more oil than gasoline. And I was, robbing Peter to pay Paul, as they say. And, I was a big brother. And that's not in the book, but, for those out in other parts of the world, a big brother and big sisters, where you take on an individual, a young child who comes from a really difficult situation, and, you mentor to them. And so the carrying the torch was just that. I was, as you pointed out in the beginning of the show, I'm in advertising, and at the time we represented all the Chevrolet dealers in the Tampa Bay area. And one of the gentlemen that was in charge of Chevrolet at the time was Kurt Ritter, and just a wonderful guy. He lives in Bel Air, California now, and he is, I think, chairman of Saatchi & Saatchi Advertising. But at the time, he was moving up the ladder with Chevrolet, and he had moved out of the Tampa Bay area, went to Detroit. He was head marketing manager for Chevrolet Motor Division, and I get a call one day, and while we were close, we weren't, we talked, maybe every 6 months, or if we saw people that saw each other at a meeting. But his son was living in Tampa and struggling at the time. He just graduated from college, and was having a real difficult time getting a job. And Kurt called me and asked if I could spend some time with him. And I said, absolutely. So we did kind of like a Tuesdays with Maury's, right? And it was Tuesdays with Kurt's son. And he was, flipping hamburgers at a Fridays. That's a hamburger joint. And he just couldn't get his footing in the market that he wanted, the segment that he wanted to get into. And that was film and what have you. And so I remember after about 6 weeks, he called me up. He says, "Can I come in and talk to you?" And I said, "Sure." He was excited, and I kind of thought maybe he had a job. And he says, "I got a job." And I said, "Really? Where is that?" And he says, "Well, it's with Campbell Ewald." And all of a sudden, a red light went off. Campbell Ewald was the national agency for Chevrolet. And I know how he got that job, and that's not the job he wanted. And after he was done telling me about, being a junior account executive, and I just looked across the table from where we were, and I said, "You know what? You don't want to take that." I said, "That's not what you want to do. Your dad can pick up the phone today, tomorrow, a year from now, and get you that same position." I said, "You're passionate about the film industry. You're passionate about, what you went to school for." I said, "Stick with it." And don't you know, he took my advice, and a week later, he got his dream job out of Miami. Well, now I start becoming very close to the family. I'm invited to weddings, and they come when he's in Florida. We go to the football games together, and I think the mentoring is what really makes it happen in life, and being able to give something back. And then the next thing I know, out of the clear blue, he calls me up and said, "Cody," he said, "how would you like to carry the torch in the Olympics?" He had reached that level at Chevrolet Motor Division where he could pick a couple of people. And I must tell you, he had relationships with agencies that were huge, right? They dwarf mine.
Right.
He knew every Chevrolet dealer all the big Chevrolet dealers in the country. And he didn't ask, he called me and asked me, and I credit it with the mentoring.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? And it just goes to show that if you're not open to opportunity because you've been directed or you've been following a path that you don't believe to be true or purposeful, you miss out on that natural occurring opportunity, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So when was it you thought, right, there's definitely something in this schmooze, so I'm going to write a book about it? How did that come about?
So, I really didn't I knew I wanted to write a book because some, obviously crazy things have happened to me, if you'll indulge me here, getting a baseball signed by the Pope, getting a Super Bowl ring from an NFL Hall of Fame coach, auditioning for Saturday Night Live within a 48-hour notice. And, I just felt like I was wired a little bit differently. And, I was living this journey, this eclectic journey that I'm still living. And some really wonderful things have happened to me as a result of, reaching out and being there for other people and my personality. I don't know if your pre-notes show it, but I was actually born with a lampshade on my head. So the humorous aspect of my personality didn't hurt. And I just decided that I was going to write a book, and that was 2017. And I'm still working full time, and so I did it at night and put together what I thought was a really good life story, not a biography for sure, but life lessons from somebody who's walked the walk.
Yeah.
So many times I'm in a situation where I see a speaker and great in front of an audience, or I'll read a book, and so much of it, and I say this respectfully, is regurgitated internet stuff. And then I hear the same thing this guy said, and this person says this. And, every story in the book that I have, it's me. It's real life. It's, it's really, it's from somebody who's walked the walk.
Did you walk the walk or did you schmooze the schmooze?
I think I probably did a little bit of both. I was schmoozing when I didn't know what the word meant.
Exactly. Yeah. So in the book, you call these out as schmooze essentials. So what are they, and how, as a leader, might I use them?
So yeah, the last chapter is Schmooze Essentials, and it's a collection of things that I wanted to leave people with that are just real important. And paying a compliment. There's actually 10, so I won't go over all 10, but paying a compliment. You go into a restaurant and somebody gives you great service and you throw down your money. And I know in some countries you don't, that's not required or not the custom, but in the United States, we leave a gratuity. And one thing that I have learned over the years that's much more important than a gratuity is to pay a compliment. John, that was maybe the best service I've ever had. And I mean, they light up like a Christmas tree. I mean, it's amazing. So, paying a compliment. It's about laughing at yourself. And, some of us take ourselves way too seriously. And I've been with some movers and shakers who are, they wouldn't put a smile on their face if they had to. But, it's about actually not taking yourself too seriously. I'll tell you a real quick story, if I may. I'm charging, I come home. I've got 3 little kids, and I say little kids. They're 10, 9, and 8. And my wife and I had just bought this brand new suede couch, green suede couch, and I really felt like I had arrived, Steve. To have this couch, and so I walk in and I look at the couch and there's a big stain on the couch and I almost can't believe it. What happened? Well, immediately I called the 3 children. Cody, Chelsea, Kip, get up here right now. And up they come, and I look at that couch, the stain, and I said, I want to know who did it. I want to know now, and I want to know the truth. And young Cody looks up at me. He said, Dad, you can't handle the truth from the movie, And I just, he disarmed me, and I started laughing. How stupid! Why am I getting so upset about a stain? And so, it is about laughing at yourself. It's about making sure that you understand that, not just Coca-Cola, not just Nike, you have a brand. Who are you? What flags do you wave? If 100 people had to say something about you, what would they say? And I think for young people starting out in business, I think it's so important that you establish who you are and build your brand. And so, that's in there. It's about appreciating what we have. I told my kids when they were growing up, when they would, bemoan the fact that maybe they didn't have the latest and the greatest this or that, because I didn't believe in giving it to them. You have it better than 99.9% of all the people that have ever lived on the face of this earth. And, I think that actually connected with them. And, so, yeah, in the book, I've got all kinds of things in the last chapter there, 10 different things.
I resonate with that. I had a very similar conversation with my youngest son this weekend, actually.
What happened?
Well, it was a case of just not recognizing the value of what he had versus the value of what he didn't have.
I gotcha.
And sometimes it's just about helping people who have been, and I class myself to be very fortunate and having the spoils of a successful career behind me. And he's been born into a life that I wasn't born into, with lots of spoils and lots of other things that I would have never had at his age. And just sometimes helping them to reframe how fortunate they are isn't all about either material things. It's about the surroundings and the environment they're in too, right?
So true. So true. One of the things in that the last chapter is I tell people to be a pushover. I'm an easy mark for these people on the street, and I never say no. I feel guilty if I look down and I'm in my car and I don't have some some change or some whatever to give them. But I've done my homework, and most of these people are they're hungry. 85% of these people are hungry. So, yeah, there are some people that are trying to put you together. And in the book, I talk about being a pushover. And I actually talk about a story when our whole family went to West Virginia, and the airport was closed down. And I went downtown with my kids and my bride, and we were going to get some food. And it was a cold night, and the kids were probably right around that 7, 8, 9 age. And all of a sudden somebody grabs me on my shoulder, and I turn around, and, I see this guy with all his hair going on, and, kind of, you got some money or something like that. And I said, no, I don't. And, I kind of shoot him away, I thought. And then, about a minute later, there he is again. And, and now I get in his face because I'm really upset. I'm very protective of my kids. And I don't want this guy, endangering my family. And I react like, I guess, any father would. So, I got in his face, told him to get out. I was going to call the police, so on and so forth. I got to the restaurant, and my son, Cody, remembers this. And I said to my wife, I said, I didn't really treat that guy too well, and who knows what's going on in his life. And so I gave her my watch. I gave her all of about, $50 that I had. And I said, I'm going to go find him and find him and see what's going on. So I left the restaurant. I walked up in this alley and down the street, and there he was. He was sitting on a park bench with his significant other, and they had a blanket around them. And I came up to him from the side there, so he didn't really know I was coming. And I said, hey. And he looked at me. Now he almost jumps, and I said, no. I just want to tell you, I apologize for the way I acted. And I said, are you guys hungry? And they both looked at me, and they said, yeah. I said, well, come on, let's go. And so I was actually thinking about taking them to the Mexican restaurant, and there was a McDonald's across the street, not too far from where we were. And he said, well, how about McDonald's? And I said, sure. So we went into McDonald's, and, his girlfriend was first, and she looked back at me, and I said, no, go whatever you want. Just get it, So she got 2 Big Macs. She got a apple pie. She got the big fry, whatever it was. And I thought she was ordering for both of them. And then he got up there. He said, I'll take the same. But so, my kids learned a big lesson. As I said, Cody still remembers that day. And all of my kids have followed me as it relates to being, maybe considered overly generous to these people. But, when you look at what's been bestowed on me and my family and, everything, even talking to Steve here, it's, I've got a lot to be thankful for. Yeah. And, I know that everybody doesn't.
It's a great lesson as well, isn't it?
Yes.
So the one thing that struck me in the book as well that you call out was called the what if syndrome.
Oh, the what if syndrome. Yeah. Everybody is always, well, what if this happens? What if that happens? And it's about, when I talk about stepping out of your schmooze zone, and I tell people that I'm not gonna jump off the Skyway Bridge or the San Francisco Bay Bridge or bungee jump. But, in life, I have looked at things. I've looked at challenges, and, I've always gone for it. And I think a lot of people are held back by, their peers and people that they their bosses and what have you, and they have this fear of people. Well, I've never really had that fear. So if I thought maybe I could do something, I just went out and did it. In the book, I talk about, running a marathon. Somebody bet me $100 that, I couldn't run a marathon. And I said, well, yeah, I could run a marathon. And they laughed. And, I'm really in great shape today, Steve. But back then I was a little sloppy, right? And I remember Steve Chapman, he was president of the DuPont Registry, and he was running the Marine Corps marathon. And I said, well, I could probably do that. Maybe I'll do that with you. And he started laughing because it was the funniest thing he ever heard. And I got to tell you, in high school, I think the most I ever did from an exercise standpoint, I think I had to run a mile to actually get my diploma. So anyway, I took him up on it, and it's a great story. It's a fun story, but I got to tell you, when I started off the first week trying to, kind of get into this thing, I thought, boy, I really made a big mistake. I couldn't get a quarter of a mile before I was gasping for air. And I was going around this Lake Hollings, which was 3.5 miles. And I went, dear God, I can't even get around this lake. And, but before, all was done, I had run around that lake 8 times, and I did. I competed in the Marine Corps marathon, and so I would say my advice is just, go with what's with what your gut tells you, and don't listen to some naysayers out there. And we've got a lot of great people who have accomplished a lot of things in this world by taking that advice, for sure.
Definitely so. So I'm going to ask you to step out of the schmooze zone now, because I'm going to turn the lens a little into your world of leadership. So you've been a successful leader of a number of different businesses. So I want to really tap into that leadership mind of yours now. And first place I'm going to go, Cody, is to ask you what your top 3 leadership hacks would be.
So, a big part of the book, and a part of my background in business and my whole life has been building relationships that last. Steve, in my business, it's if you have an account for 2 or 3 years, you can be very, very thankful. We have accounts on the book that have been there for 30 years, plus 30 years. And I always tell people it's about the secret sauce. You say the 3 things. Number 1, build the relationship. And I think a lot of people get this wrong. They say, oh, it's going to take me a year to build a relationship. You build a relationship within the first 60 seconds that you meet somebody.
Sure.
And I'm well aware that if I go into a meeting, I know more about that guy than I probably the people that work for him. So it's building the relationships, and then it's earning their trust. Okay, that's the foundation of every relationship. It's the foundation of every business relationship, earning their trust and being there for them. And then number 3, endeavoring to never let them down. And I've got clients. I'm their blankie. I mean, they call me on the weekends, Sunday, and and a lot of times it's not even related to the business necessarily. It's something that's happening in their life. And if I'm been with them for 20 to 30 years, I'm also their friend, right?
Right.
So so building the relationship, getting them to trust you, and then never letting them down.
Awesome tips and ideas. Thank you. Appreciate you sharing that. The next part of the show we've called Hack to Attack. So this is typically where something's screwed up, hasn't worked out well at all, but as a result of the experience, you now use it as a positive in your life and work. So what would be your hack to attack, Cody?
Yeah, my hack to attack. I mean, one of the quotes that's in the book, and it's a Japanese proverb, and it says, fall down 7 times, get up 8. And I can tell you, I've done that, many, many times in my life, and no one is, everybody's got adversity in their life. And so when I get people that kind of get carried away with it, I remind them of this deal that, you have to get up and you have to keep charging. And early in business, I got taken by a guy that was, I thought he was my mentor, right? And he was the big shot in the Tampa Bay area as far as advertising. I'm not going to mention his name, but he brought me on. He wanted me to work for him, and that didn't work. So he made me kind of a quasi partner, if you will. And we became partners. And after about 6 months, I realized that he had been going to the accountant and taking money out of the company to buy a home in St. Croix and this, that, and the other. Well, to make kind of a long story short, when I finally realized that this guy needed to be out of my life, I had the accounting people came in and they said, "Well, Cody, you're in the hole about $500,000." And I almost couldn't believe it, right? Wow. $500,000, me, little Cody Lowry, paper boy, I'm in debt, $500,000. So the attorneys got together and they decided the best thing for me to do would be to just file bankruptcy. In our country, you can file bankruptcy and you can actually start the next day in another job. And they said, yeah, this is our only way out, or your only way out. And I looked across the table at, 3 people that went to pretty good law schools. And I said, that's not what I'm going to do. And I said, I'm going to go to the suppliers. I'm going to talk to them. I'm going to tell them exactly what happened. And at the time, we did a lot. The reason it got so big is we were dealing with TV stations and, TV time, and that's very expensive. But I went to maybe 6 TV stations where the bulk of that debt was. And I met with the general manager or president of the TV station, and I told him exactly what happened. And I said, I can't pay you today, but I will pay you over time. I believe I'm going to be successful. And you know what? There wasn't one that said no, and every one of them got their money. So, awesome. Yeah.
It's a lovely story. Many people would have taken the easy route out and, file for bankruptcy, but that just shows the kind of character that sits behind the man. So congratulations for you.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you.
The last thing we want to do today, Cody, is give you a chance to do some time travel. So you now have the opportunity to go back in time, bump into Cody at 21 and give him some words of wisdom and some advice. What would it be?
I would say, and not to rehash what we've already talked about, but if you have a dream, if you have a goal, don't put it on hold. Find a way to, go after that dream or that goal. And I would say, get rid of the naysayers in your life. And when I was starting out at age 21, Steve, I got to tell you, I was a little naive. And I don't think being naive is really so bad, because you go down avenues that maybe other people would know. You can't do that. What are you, crazy? And so, I think part of my advice would be, it's okay to be naive. I just real quick, auditioning for Saturday Night Live within a 48-hour period. I was doing stand-up comedy, and I went to New York. I had, enough money to last maybe a week, and I did Catch a Rising Star and the Improv and what have you. And I decided just, I've got 2 days left. I know what I'll do. I'll audition for Saturday Night Live. Oh, really? How are you going to pull that one off? Well, I was naive, and it worked for me. And, 2 days later, there I was auditioning for Saturday Night Live, doing my Jim Mikado my name is Jim Mikado. I always tell the truth. If I tell a lie, grow another 2. So I guess what I'm saying is it's okay to be naive.
Yeah.
And, so that would be my advice.
Awesome. So, Cody, I've loved schmoozing with you, but for our listeners who might want to continue the conversation beyond our show today, where's the best place for us to send them when we're done?
Mr. Schmooze.com. That's MR Schmooze.com. My book, Schmooze, What They Should Teach at Harvard Business School. It's obviously available on Barnes & Noble and Amazon and what have you. It's also an audio book out there, which is, I hear, pretty good. And so, yeah, the website's good, and wherever books are sold.
Awesome. We'll make sure those are all in our show notes as well, so that people can literally stop listening to us and start listening to some more of you. So, Cody, thank you so much. I know you're incredibly busy, and it's a real privilege and an honor for us to have you on our show. And thanks for being part of the Leadership Hacker community.
Well, it was an honor speaking to you. Truly it was.
Thank you, Cody.
Thank you.
I genuinely want to say a heartfelt thanks for taking time out of your day to listen in too. We do this in the service of helping others and spreading the word of leadership. Without you listening in, there would be no show. So please subscribe now if you haven't done so already. Share this podcast with your communities and network, and help us develop a community and a tribe of leadership hackers. And finally, if you'd like me to work with your senior team, your leadership community, keynote an event, or you would like to sponsor an episode, please connect with us via our social media. And you can do that by following and liking our pages on Twitter and Facebook. Our handle there is @LeadershipHacker. Instagram, you can find us there at _leadership_hacker, and at YouTube, we're just Leadership Hacker. So that's me signing off. I'm Steve Rush, and I've been the Leadership Hacker.